Alright guys, today's going to be fun for some people. Some people don't really like the theory behind things, but I think it's really important to have a basic understanding so that you can build on it later and things make sense, just like building a foundation from the ground up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some stuff that we did in the past on the website and actually put it together to create chords. So from before we learned how to do the major scale with the major scale formula. So if we're in C major, let's say we're starting on the second string first fret. We go up a whole step to D, whole step to E, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, and then a half step brings us to the octave C. So if you listen to the whole thing, it's do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And in my opinion, every guitar player when you start off should be able to do that. Just using their ear and experimenting over time, it's a good thing to be able to do. But if you forget, the formula is a whole step, a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And this is review for a lot of you guys if you're going through the website to learn all this. So, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find out how this creates a chord magically. So we have the first note C. We skip the second note and go to the third note, which is E. Skip the fourth note and go to the fifth note, which is G. So you end up with C, E, G. If you combine those three notes, it's called a triad, creates a C major chord. So how do we do that on guitar? We can't do it all on one string for obvious reasons, but we can play them on separate strings and make them work. So let's go ahead and go to the C from the beginning again. We're going to play the G string, the open G, which is right next to it. But we can also play the open E, which is right next to it as well. So if you put those three together, even though it's mixed up, it's G, C, E in this case, it's still those three notes, so it creates a C major chord. So they will call that a triad, three notes. However, you guys probably know C major like this. The full version of the chord, or even a bar chord of it, whatever you do. No matter where you play C major, it's still just three notes. So don't let it fool you that you're playing 5 strings in this case. All you're doing is you're adding another C right here and another E right here. So you're just doubling up on some of the notes to make it sound more full. And it's actually a really cool shape to play. So that's C major, 3 notes, C, E, and G. Okay, let's go to another key now. Let's go to the key of G. So we could start off with open G. And I want you to play on the 3rd string all the way up to the 12th fret, the major scale. So figure it out. So remember the formula, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. 2 holes and a half, 3 holes and a half. Where people go wrong is right when they hit the first note, they say whole. And you can't say that because you haven't gone a whole step yet. You're just starting. So G, then a whole step to A. Whole step to B, half step to C. Whole step to D, whole step to E. Whole step to F sharp, don't let that one fool you. Half step, we're back home to G, the octave. Remember, the 12th fret is the octave of the open string. Okay, let's take the first note, the 3rd note, and the 5th note of that and see if we can create the G major chord now. So we have G, we have B, that's our 3rd interval, and then as we reach up we have D. That's our 5th interval. So root note, 3rd interval, 5th interval, G, B, D. Play those 3 notes together and you end up with this. So the thing is when I play the actual chord shape, it might be confusing just because of the nature of the strings. Especially if you play the full G, you're probably like, wow, that's a lot of notes. But let's break it down, okay? If you play the 6th string, you're playing G. The next string, B. The next open string, D. So there's your G, B, D right away. The next string's open G. And if you play G major like this, like with the full chord shape, the ring finger's going to play D. And then the pinky's playing another G. There's 3 G's in this chord. That's why it sounds so huge. Great sounding chord. Okay, so just so you know, even the big fat G major shape that we know, we call it the 3rd form on the website, that's just 3 notes. When you first learned it, we did the baby version, which was like that, but it still just contains the 3 notes. It's D, G, B, G. Okay, now a big part of this lesson is to teach you how to make major chords into minor chords and the theory behind it. And then we're also going to do another type of chord today, but it's just going to be a little bit of a bonus, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I want to at least get to the minors for sure, go a little bit in depth with that, and then we'll hit the last one, okay? So let's go to a new key first before we start to do this minor business. Let's go to the key of D. So you could do open D. This is just to figure out the notes, remember. Whole step to E. Whole step to F sharp, half step to G, whole step to A, whole to B, whole step to C sharp, half step to D, octave. So there's our do, re, mi sound. All right, let's examine the notes now. So open D was first. We skip the E and go to F sharp. That's our third interval. So remember that one. And then we had G we skipped, and then we went to A for our fifth interval. So we have D, F sharp, A. That's going to be our triad, okay? That's what they call it. So let's go to the D shape that we all know. It's the triangle shape. Very early lesson on the website was to make this chord shape. We also call it the fifth form. All right, let's examine what's inside of it, all right? We have open D. Our index finger's playing A. Our ring finger's playing another D, so it spells dad. And then our middle finger is playing F sharp. So interval-wise, that's our root note, the open D. Then it goes to a fifth interval, the A. Then the octave, D. Then the third interval is the middle finger, that's the F sharp note. That one's very important for what we're trying to learn right now, so remember that. Okay, let's make the D major again. Now, in order to make a major chord into a minor chord, what you need to do is take whatever the third interval was. Do you remember what it was in this case? It was F sharp. And we have to drop it a half a step. So F sharp becomes F natural, just regular F. How do you do that in the context of the chord we were playing? Well, if you go like this, I told you the F sharp was actually where the middle finger is. That's playing the F sharp. So we have to drop that down half a step to the F. Now, if you're already playing D like this with these fingerings, it's really hard to do that. You do not want to do this business. That's too crazy. So what you do instead, see how the middle finger needs to go back to the first fret? Well, that's not going to happen physically. So what we're going to do is we're going to let our index finger come back and play that note, and then our middle finger can lift up and just go and replace where the index finger used to be. Just because the index finger was nice enough to leave its post to help out the middle finger, so now the middle finger has to replace it, okay? So these might look like two completely different shapes and fingerings, but essentially what's happening is you're still playing this chord, but this note has moved back half a step. Super important to know that. Okay, so D major. Moving this note back by exchanging fingers and then replacing, you have D minor now. So instead of having D, F sharp, A, which is the major, now we have D, F, A, creates this sound. People say minor has like a sadness to it, a mysterious quality, and you can hear that. So major is very bold. Minor, according to Spinal Tap, is the saddest chord there is. All right, so that should give you an idea of how a chord can go from happy to sad just by one little movement. So not that big of a change to go between those two worlds, okay? Let's try that in another key, and then we're gonna start to do the bonus section like I was talking about. Okay, let's go. Open A. Whole step is B, whole step is C sharp, half step is D, whole step is E, whole step is F sharp, whole step is G sharp, and then we're at the octave A. So that's our do, re, mi. Let's take the three intervals that create the major chord, the first, the third, and the fifth. A is the first, or the root note. C sharp is our third interval. E is our fifth interval. A, C sharp, E. That's going to create an A major chord. Now let's play the shape that we've all learned, the straight line. And like I mentioned before, if you don't know all this basic stuff, you can always learn this on the website. So we have A major. Let's examine it, okay? We have open A. The middle finger's playing E. The ring finger's playing another A. The pinky is playing C sharp. So that's one you're going to want to keep track of. And then the open E again. So the E happens a few times. as well as the A. Happens a couple times. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the pinky, which is playing the third interval C sharp, and we need to move it back half a step. Now you can already tell if you're going to try to use your pinky for that, good luck. It's too weird. So instead, once again, the index finger comes to the rescue. And what it does is I'm going to get rid of the top two fingers here like this. All right, physically the top. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically take the pinky note and move it back half a step by letting the first finger take over. So that's what's happening as you go from this to this. You're just moving the one note back half a step using two different fingers. Okay, let's replace those other fingers to creating the A major chord. Now let's do what we just did. We're going to lift up our pinky, but our index finger is going to come back and save the day. There's that sad minor sound. So A major is A, C sharp, and E, all mixed up in there. And then we take the C sharp note, bring it back to a regular C natural, and we have A minor. So A minor is built off A, C, and E. Major, minor. Okay, let's get to the last bonus chord. We're just, like I said before, we're going to just mention it briefly because there's a lot of confusion surrounding this chord. And where the confusion comes in is where people start to see chords like A7 and they don't know really how it's built. Well, A7 is actually built off of an interesting equation because we have the major triad to start off with. That's the A portion of it. And then that 7 is where people kind of, lose track of what's going on. So let's fix that today, okay? Let's go back to the A scale that we did earlier. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. So what a lot of people assume is that you're going to take the 7th note of that scale and add it to the existing A chord. And that makes sense, and that's actually another kind of chord that we'll talk about in a second. But here's what you want to do in order to make an A7 chord, referred to as a dominant chord, also known as a major minor chord. So this can be a little confusing, but just stay with me here. So if you wanted to go up to that 7th note, G sharp, that's fine. In order to make this chord work, the A7 chord, you actually have to add a minor 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that note and we're going to bring it back half a step. There's a lot of that going on today, just moving notes a little bit here and there to change the entire chord. So the G sharp, which is the true 7th note of that scale, is now just G, the minor 7 of it. So that gives us the note we need to add to the existing chord to make it an A7 chord. I know that's confusing. Why do you have to flatten it? That's weird, but I'll explain in later lessons. So if we just take this concept of taking the G, the minor 7 of that scale, and adding it to the existing chord, which is A major. Here's how you do it. Okay, there's a few ways, but this is the way we're going to do because earlier in the lesson series, we did this shape, and it's very easy to play for a lot of people. Since I said we're already playing a couple of A's in this shape, we have open A, and then we're also playing A with our ring finger here on the 3rd string. So we can get rid of one of them, it's okay. We're going to get rid of the ring finger one, okay? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to lift up our ring finger completely, exposing the open G string to the equation. Listen to this now. There's the A7 chord. Now, the problem people seem to have, including myself when I was first learning this, is I thought I was taking something away from the chord, when actually by lifting up your ring finger, you're adding the G to it. So don't get that confused. Don't think, okay, in order to do a 7th chord, I have to take away something from the shape. Really, since you're lifting up the ring finger, you're adding a G to this equation. If you keep the ring finger down, you just have another A going on. But if you lift it up, you're adding a G. That's why it's also possible if you play A barred like this, you can add the G here with a ring finger on the 1st string 3rd fret. I prefer the more mellow version of it for beginner intermediate players because it's just a cool sounding chord and it's kind of simple to do because you're just lifting off a finger. Now you may notice I sometimes use my ring finger here, but sometimes I also just leave my pinky down. Either one is the same thing. This is a little more stable for some people. So you could do that with any chord. So that's a very quick explanation of the 7th chord, but as far as the major and minor go, it's very important to realize that it's just one little difference between them. that creates the difference in sound. So remember, major is root note, third and fifth of the major scale. And then if you want to make it into a minor triad, you just take the third and you flatten it by half a step. And then you're there. So experiment with this, play around with it a bit. Sometimes you learn better if you take some information and run with it. You don't need me to hold your hand through the whole thing, because I trust you guys can, play with it a little bit and discover things just by doing that. And if you have any other questions or any problems, you can check out all the other videos we have on these topics. And there's going to be a lot more coming out in the next couple months, so keep an eye out for those lessons. I'm sort of on a roll over here, and we'll catch you up with everything you need to know, okay? All right, we'll catch you guys soon. Bye.